Previously, in the last chapter, Jewel visited her grandfather and requested to break her engagement with the crown prince. Duke Torn was delighted and decided to support Jewel, because she declared to become a loyal Garnet and fight for succession. Afterwards, Jewel met Count Lawton, who was nervous at her for meeting Duke Torn, and Jewel's father, Viscount Enrique, who tried to convince Jewel not to fight for succession, but Jewel refused. Thereafter, Jewel visited Crown Prince Oppenheim to cancel her engagement with him. Jewel thought that the Crown Prince was pretentious, but after talking, she understood why the original Jewel fell in love with him. After the small talks, Prince Oppenheim asked Jewel to state her main purpose, and Jewel announced to cancel their engagement. Despite the original Jewel's love to the prince, the new Jewel now will not let the prince and the royal family interfere her plans for revenge just for some whimsical romance. However, Prince Oppenheim refused to cancel his engagement with Jewel, which made Jewel upset, because she will have to process the formal cancellation for 6 months since the prince refused. After Jewel's appointment with the prince, Jewel found an injured bird outside the palace and decided to heal the bird out of pity. While Jewel was busy, someone approached her from behind, and it was Grand Duke Youston, her enemy. Continuing the story. Earlier that time, Grand Duke Youston can be seen drinking tea at the Grand Duchy of Peridot. Count Median, sitting face to face with the Grand Duke, shook his head and suggested that Jewel should be removed as one of the suspects who uses black magic. That's because Jewel displayed divine power when she resurrected Duke Torn. Count Median can't believe they suspected Jewel to be an agent of evil and darkness, when they clearly saw Jewel up close used holy power to revive her grandfather. However, Grand Duke Youston interjected that he still isn't sure about it. As he took a sip of the steaming tea, Youston argued that the devil can disguise black magic as holy powers. Even though it's just a theory and they haven't seen it yet, it may be a possibility. It was the first time that Count Median heard of this, so he asked Youston if Jewel's power can be fake. It was too virtuous and noble act to be considered a demonic power, if it isn't a real holy ability. Moreover, Jewel was seen earnestly praying the gods at that time as she recited Saint Estelle's prayer. Count Median also asked that the demonic power that Youston felt might be someone related to Jewel. Grand Duke Youston couldn't refute what Count of Median said, because at that time, the divine power Lady Jewel used was too virtuous that it made anyone shed tears. However, something tells Youston that there's something that he might have missed, and Jewel gives him a very bad feeling. Count Median tried to confirm again. If Grand Duke Youston still thinks that Jewel has evil powers, Youston can't give a definite answer, and can only adjust his glasses. It's a habit he unconsciously does whenever he's worried about something. Count Median decided to trust Duke Youston's intuition for now, because Youston dedicated his life in killing people corrupted by darkness ever since he was young. Exactly 13 years ago, Grand Duke Youston was swept away by darkness, killing all his family members with his own hands. Youston awakened with angelic blood, therefore, his spiritual intuition is different compared to ordinary humans. In particular, his intuition was somehow accurate in matters related to darkness. And before that trauma healed, even Estelle, his only hope, was also sacrificed to the darkness and died. Due to these things, Youston despised the darkness and deemed it as the only meaning of his life. Count Median sighed and told Grand Duke Youston that he will observe Jewel more. He can easily bypass and gather information, since he is from Garnet family. However, this Youston replied that he will take matters by his own hand and observe Jewel instead. Youston then showed a short letter, asking him to consider marriage with Lady Jewel. This engagement will be his way for monitoring Jewel up close to find out if she really has demonic powers. Count Median had an absurd face, because Jewel is currently engaged with the Crown Prince. Youston replied back that Jewel's engagement will be called off soon. Still, Count Median thought that sending a marriage letter immediately to Youston is inappropriate and suspicious, But Youston saw this an opportunity to investigate, so he will consider it. Count Median asked hypothetically if Youston actually might end up marrying Jewel instead. Youston thought for a while and just shrugged, saying, Jewel would be the most beautiful bride in the world. Jewel was clearly one of the prettiest women in the empire. But Youston isn't interested in her romantically. But if he might really end up marrying her just because of his obsession of finding demonic power, then it can't be helped it happens. Count Median thought that Youston was joking. Back in the palace gardens, Jewel asked Youston if he has an appointment with the crown prince. The sudden meeting left Jewel's heart in the cold. A vigilance, as if meeting an old enemy, rose. She doesn't hate him. In the past, there was also a special relationship that he gave her when she was still Estelle. But in the end, he is the one she has to fight. She couldn't help but feel reluctant around him. However, Youston said that he is meeting Jewel instead of the crown prince, in context of seeing the bride-to-be. Jewel was caught off guard. She didn't expect for her grandfather to grant her request that fast, and immediately process her engagement with Grand Duke Youston. It immediately shows how immense power and connections that Duke Torn has. In the meantime, Jewel freed the bird she just healed. Jewel felt something was definitely wrong meeting Youston, but she still exchanged pleasantries with him. Grand Duke Youston asked Jewel the reason why Jewel proposed an engagement with him. Actually, the two of them had no ties at all. Youston wondered why Jewel asked for marriage with him. Amongst other dukes, to get rid of him, to dig a trap, she couldn't say that. Jewel hesitated but quickly cleared up her thoughts and bowed her head.
I have heard a lot of rumors of the Grand Duke from before. As a Grand Duke of Brilliance, I have always admired you for trying to practice justice.
Jewel played as a pure girl with both hands together. Grand Duke Youston thanked Jewel for praising him. However, Youston seemed to be distracted and told Jewel about having a wound in her neck. Youston was already observing Jewel's behavior, and somehow he had a slight sharp sensation in his eyes. Youston asked Jewel why didn't she heal it with her own holy powers, and just left it be. Jewel's face hardened and made up an excuse. It was a wound that she left on herself when she fell asleep a few days ago. She didn't heal the wound due to the side effects of using black magic. But if she knew this would happen, she would rather treat the wound and suffer from the consequences. Countess Evelyn wounded Jewel when she imprisoned Jewel. However, Youston suggested to heal the wound himself. Jewel nervously smiled. Divine power causes rejection on darkness, and Youston might found out. It doesn't seem like Youston is suspecting her. However, a cold feeling passed by Jewel's back the moment she met his eyes. If Youston found out, he might kill her right here. Right now, Grand Duke Youston's words are only pure worry. This anxiety was likely Jewel's tingling sensitivity. Youston pushed Jewel more to test her. Right then, Grand Duke Youston started casting his healing spell to cure Jewel's wound. Jewel already refused, but it didn't work. In fact, it is more suspicious to refuse in this kind of situation. That's because the wound is now healed and there's no rejection, because of her demonic power. Grand Duke Youston showed a strange reaction, but he still managed to smile, saying that the wound is now healed. He also apologized for touching Jewel's neck, because that's the only way he can heal her. Jewel didn't mind and was just glad that Youston didn't found anything about her. Thereafter, Grand Duke Youston escorted Jewel towards her carriage and bid farewell. Jewel nodded and climbed into the carriage. Soon, the carriage began to leave the imperial palace, and Youston watched it. His face became complicated. Count Median, who was nearby, approached him and asked upon raising his head about Jewel. Youston then ordered Count Median to contact the Garnet family. He declared that he will be accepting Jewel's formal engagement proposal. He couldn't find any signs of darkness. Even with the eyes of judgment, it was not visible at all. Count Median was hesitant about Grand Duke Youstin's decision. Once Youstin will be betrothed, there might be no turning back. Count of Median shook his head in confusion, and reminded Youstin to be careful. The opponent is the arrogant Garnet of pride. Once he accepts it, he can never take it back by his own. Even though this is just to further investigate Jewel, it can be said that it's too much. The Garnet of pride can consider it if they want to break up, but they will never tolerate it if the one suggesting the breakup is from the other party. In other words, unless Jewel is a dark entity, Grand Duke Youstin must marry her. However, Grand Duke Youstin still couldn't nod, because when he treated Jewel earlier, for some odd reason, he saw a fantasy or an illusion for a short moment. A familiar figure was in hell, terrible hell, a terrible abyss with no bottom visible passed by. He has faced a lot of darkness so far, but he have never experienced anything like this before. A few days later, Maid Rune delivered a good news to Jewel. It was about Grand Duke Youstin be willingly engaged to Jewel. To put it simply, it was a fake marriage. After their meeting, she had a hunch that Youstin is dangerous and she had to deal with it somehow. Rune also told Jewel about the bad news. Another formal letter arrived. The Crown Prince saying that he refused to cancel the engagement. Jewel again felt absurd. It was an unprecedented situation, where she hasn't broken up her engagement yet, and was already in a marriage conversation with another man.
But I'm a Garnet anyway. I don't have to worry about what other people say.
Garnet, it's a word with a lot of meaning. Originally, the selfish Garnet did not care much about other people's eyes. Rune talked in gibberish bearing a look of excitement, and Jewel played along with her. Jewel then told Rune to escort herself out because she was tired. Night came and Jewel, left alone in the room, looked like she was in deep thought. There was something to check. She noticed a clean neck without a wound. She remembered the time when she received the divine power of Grand Duke Youstin. She thought that there must be something special about Jewel's body, because it can take in both holy and demonic powers, without causing a bad reaction. However, Jewel suddenly felt nauseous that she covered her mouth with her hand. It was the rejection effect of accepting divine power. But at least, it didn't occur earlier when she was with Youstin. A divine power manifested from her hand, and when she used it to her body, a severe pain came immediately. No. It rejected a normal divine power but accepted Youstin's unique holy power. Jewel shook her head, and decided to stop thinking about it for now. Jewel then quickly fell asleep and had a dream. An unexpected dream. It was a dream about her being Estelle, and confronting Youstin years ago. Youstin's cheeks were hot after being slapped by Estelle. After refusing treatment, Youstin was trying to end his life and was scolded by her. Estelle told Youstin that she didn't abuse him, and treated him well. And even though she can't replace Youstin's parents, she still cares for him. When the young boy heard the cry, his tears fell. Estelle silently hugged the tearful little boy, while tears welled down in her eyes. That was still young at that time too. He was 11 years old back then when this happened, and Estelle was 13 years old. Youstin's family was massacred, so he too wanted to follow them and commit suicide. Estelle was the one who saved his life, by convincing him to hold on to life and not lose hope. The dream did not end with it. After some time had passed, thanks to her knowledge, Youstin finally found stability, and it was time for her to leave after promising to meet again. At that time, Youstin looked way younger than his age, considering he was smaller than his peers. Perhaps that is why he has this impression of a white puppy. Jewel woke up and was wide awake. She thought blankly, "Why am I dreaming about White Puppy?" White Puppy. It was a nickname she used to call the Grand Duke Youstin when she was young. Although they used to have a special relationship, she still feels sorry for Youstin. In fact, she hardly remembered him afterwards after she became Jewel. 10 years from sacrifice to death, a lot has happened to her. And she only considered her friendship with him as something that only passed by in her life. Rune arrived and told Jewel that she will prepare breakfast. Jewel interjected and instructed Rune that she would like to go out with Hamilton somewhere outside the Garnet residence. Hamilton was currently waiting for Jewel. Hamilton was always nervous whenever Jewel calls for him, because he knows Jewel's true colors and her evil nature, who will make him do unreasonable demands. When Jewel arrived, Hamilton nervously greeted her. Jewel was indifferent. She didn't care about the abuse of Hamilton becoming her puppet at all. Hamilton asked what it is all about. Jewel handed him something. An important event will be happening soon, and Hamilton will be at the center of it. Jewel forced the bloody dagger into Hamilton's hand. It was the Insight's magic dagger that fed her blood. This magic dagger can kill the stabbed opponent in peace, without any pain. It was a magic dagger that anyone who wanted rest would long for. Hamilton can roughly guess what Jewel was trying to make him do. Jewel wants him to kill someone using the dagger. She also said to Hamilton to blame and curse her of what will happen. Jewel gave him a reassurance that he won't have to do anything on his own, and will just be her puppet tonight to find out the real culprit of the poisoning incident. Baroness Ran is currently confined in the Duke Garnet's prison. However, instead of heading to jail, Jewel stepped into a mansion, Baron Morton's family mansion. Baron Morton is Baroness Ran's husband. The servant guarding the front of the mansion greeted Jewel with a surprised face and told her that this mansion is locked and nobody is allowed to enter. After convincing the butler for a while, the butler finally allowed them inside the mansion. Jewel stepped in the direction where the presence can be heard. A soft humming sound emanates from her mouth. Hamilton was confused about their purpose here and can't help but asked Jewel about it. Jewel explained that it was a requiem that comforts the dead. Anyway, it's a heavy and gloomy humming. Jewel opened the door and was able to see it, with an expressionless face. A child with tears sobbing in a corner of the room. It was Morton family's eldest son Sol, who died in an accident a few years ago. Jewel greeted the lost soul who was wandering in the mansion. She wasn't scared or even surprised by it. On the other hand, Hamilton didn't see anyone and asked Jewel if her singing attracted the spirit. Jewel then revealed that Baroness Ran isn't Baron Morton's first wife but the second one. The eldest son of the Baron isn't Baroness Ran's son, and she was only the stepmother. This meant that Baroness Ran was pretending to be family, so that rumors won't spread of what actually happened. The happy image of an ideal family was fake all along. At one time, Baroness saw the eldest son looking at the lake. A shiver came down from Hamilton, as he can predict what happened next. Jewel continued. Baroness Ran pushed the first wife's son into the lake, killed the boy and disguised it as an accident. It was the first time Hamilton heard the true story, and can't be helped but get shocked. Baroness Ran basically murdered the child, because she didn't want him to inherit Morton family's wealth. The innocent child became a ghost, and is now lingering inside the mansion. Baroness Ran, who was now in jail and tortured, will eventually confess to her crimes of poisoning Duke Torrin when the murder incident will be mentioned. Hamilton cursed Jewel's cruelness under his breath. Jewel didn't deny it, she was a devil. What she's going to do today is also a terrible thing. That was worthy to be compared to a devil. Jewel, left alone, turned her gaze. She also told the ghost child about what happened. Thereafter, Jewel tried to convince the ghost to get out of here and get his revenge. No person other than her and Hamilton in the mansion is not true. It's just that they were invisible to people. Someone was staying, and Jewel wants to help the child get out of here in exchange for a favor. The child added a condition, that he would like to personally deal with Baroness Ran, his stepmother. The child was so innocent-looking that it's hard to refuse. Jewel smiled. It didn't matter to her either way. In the Garnet family's private mansion. The knights guarding the private mansion stopped someone who were approaching. It was Jewel who arrived. The knights asked her purpose of being here. Jewel told the knights that she is here to see Baroness Ran. It's a kind voice, but when Jewel's red eyes stared at them, the knights became nervous and swallowed. The knights were hesitating, but after a few moments, the knights allowed Jewel into the underground jail. The guard knight reminded Jewel that up until now, Baroness Ran still didn't confess everything, even if she was already tortured. Gentle but difficult to comprehend. That was Garnet's employee's evaluation of the changed Jewel. She must have been gentle and kind, but there were times when her aura felt eerie and overbearing. Jewel then approached Baroness Ran, who was tied up in the moment. However, Baroness Ran only gave a dull answer, asking someone to kill her. Jewel indifferently confirmed Baroness Ran's decision. Nevertheless, Jewel told Baroness Ran that she might change her mind if she knows what will happen in the future. Right then, Jewel casted a spell unto Baroness Ran. Baroness widened her eyes in shock on what she suddenly saw. Baroness Ran became restless and shouted to Jewel. It seemed that she didn't know what changed when Jewel casted a spell on her, but it's definitely not a good thing. Jewel then told Baroness Ran to see what's in front of her, which made Baroness Ran astonished. A child appeared in front of the Baroness. The spell actually allows her to see ghosts. Baroness Ran gasped at the child whom she murdered, as it started ominously speaking to her. This is the crime she had most been feeling guilty about. And even though it already happened a few years ago, Baroness Ran can't still forget about it. She screamed as she saw the ghost. Meanwhile, Jewel teased Baroness Ran about Baroness Ran's darkest secret. As someone who came from hell just to exact revenge, Jewel isn't sorry at all to her enemies. She added fuel to the fire, saying why should Baroness Ran be scared when she was the one who committed the crime. Baroness Ran cried out on how did Jewel know about it, when there was no witness at all, and she already covered the incident perfectly. Jewel also told Baroness Ran that she shouldn't rely on Count Lawton to save her. And that's because Count Lawton, who tried to poison his own father Duke Torn, can go lengths just to achieve his own goals. Jewel threatened Baroness Ran that she will do something to her son if she doesn't confess to her own crimes until the end. Now that Baroness Ran knows Jewel's true nature, she believed that her real son will be offered to the ghost. Jewel will definitely do it. She has the power to do so. Jewel then clicked her hand to add the spice. She showed Baroness Ran a glimpse of hell, Ghana. An unbelievable sight was behind her. Countless eyes of demons were peering in the depths of hell. And beside Jewel, the once innocent ghost was now a revengeful spirit smiling towards the Baroness. Baroness Ran became paranoid and gave in towards Jewel's threats. She then began begging Jewel that she will do anything, just for Jewel to not touch her son. Jewel put up a very harsh condition, and that is for Baroness Ran to give her life to Jewel. It's basically telling Baroness Ran to die. However, Jewel wants her to. The Baroness, who was once high and mighty in the Empire, is now at Jewel's mercy. Baroness Ran thought for a moment, and finally gave herself up in exchange for her son's life. She had no choice but to do so. She loved her son too much. Upon Baroness Ran's words, the contract was established. Jewel will now set up the best stage for Baroness Ran's death. Time passed and it was already evening. Hamilton was walking somewhere in the middle of the night. A maid asked him where he was going, but he didn't respond. It seemed that Hamilton didn't even hear the maid. However, after taking a long walk, Hamilton spoke in an ominous tone. looking at his bloodshot eyes. He was currently holding a knife and is ready for a kill. And Jewel, who was currently controlling Hamilton's body, was enjoying the night in her bed. She held on the voodoo doll. Moving it also moves Hamilton's body. Still, Jewel promised that Baroness Rand's son will live comfortably in this world. She might be cruel, but she always fulfill her promises. And Baroness Rand was now lying down in her own pool of blood. Dead. Hamilton killed her. However, it seemed that Baroness Rand wrote something on the floor before her death. Is this a clue or a message? What's Jewel's intention for leaving behind this clue?
That's all, folks. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment down below, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be posting more videos about good reads you may like, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. See you soon.